Welcome to Twisted Crime Collective, a true crime podcast where the past never stays quiet. Each week, we dive deep into chilling cases, some solved, some still unsolved, that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. From the twisted motives to the haunting aftermath, we explore the darkest corners of human nature and the mysteries that refuse to be forgotten. Who committed these crimes? And what? The answers are out there, if you dare to listen. This is Twisted Crime Collective. Episode 1, Jack the Ripper. In the fog-shrouded streets of Victorian London's East End, few names have captured the public imagination and inspired such enduring terror as Jack the Ripper. The autumn of 1888 would forever be known as the Autumn of Terror, when an unidentified serial killer prowled the impoverished streets of Whitechapel, targeting female victims with a brutality that shocked even the hardened sensibilities of Victorian society. This mysterious figure, whose true identity remains unknown to this day, would become the world's most infamous serial killer and establish the template for how we understand and investigate such crimes. The social context of Victorian London's East End is crucial to understanding the Ripper murders. In the 1880s, Whitechapel was one of London's most impoverished districts, characterized by overcrowded tenements, narrow alleyways, and desperate poverty. The area was home to a diverse population, including a significant Jewish community and numerous immigrants. Prostitution was rampant, with an estimated 1,200 women working the streets of Whitechapel, many driven to the profession by extreme poverty. The social conditions of the area would prove crucial in understanding both the killer's choice of hunting ground and the difficulties faced by police in their investigation. The canonical 5 victims of Jack the Ripper, though there may have been more, were Mary and Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each murder demonstrated an escalating level of violence and anatomical knowledge that would become key elements in the investigation and subsequent theories about the killer's identity. The first officially recognized victim, Mary and Nichols, was discovered on August 31, 1888, in Bucks Row, now Durward Street. Her throat had been severed by 2 cuts, and her abdomen had been partially ripped open. The murder, while brutal, was relatively straightforward compared to what would follow. Annie Chapman's murder on September 8, 1888, marked an escalation in the killer's methodology. Found in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, Chapman's throat was cut, her abdomen was slashed open, and several of her internal organs had been removed with surgical precision. This particular detail would lead investigators to speculate that the killer might have medical training, a theory that would influence many subsequent investigations and theories about the Ripper's identity. The night of September 30, 1888, known as the Double Event, saw the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes within hours of each other. Stride's body was found in Dutfield's yard off Burner Street, with only her throat cut. Many researchers speculate that the killer was interrupted before he could complete his usual mutilations. Eddowes was found less than an hour later in Mitre Square, having suffered extensive mutilations similar to those inflicted on Chapman. The killer had removed her kidney and part of her uterus, demonstrating both anatomical knowledge and a disturbing evolution in his violence. The final canonical victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was murdered on November 9, 1888, in her room at 13 Miller's Court. Her murder was the most brutal of all, with the killer having privacy and time to inflict extensive mutilations. The scene was described by police as horrific, with Kelly's body being extensively dismembered and eviscerated. This murder marked the apex of the Ripper's known crimes, and though similar murders would occur in the following years, none were definitively linked to the same killer. The investigation into the Ripper murders was hampered by several factors, including the primitive state of forensic science in the Victorian era, the crowded and chaotic nature of Whitechapel, and the social attitudes of the time. The Metropolitan Police, led by Commissioner Sir Charles Warren, faced intense criticism for their handling of the case. The investigation was primarily conducted by Inspector Frederick Aberline, Inspector Edmund Reed, and Chief Inspector Donald Swanson, who employed both traditional police work and some innovative techniques for the time. One of the most significant aspects of the Ripper case was the role of the media. The murders coincided with a revolution in popular journalism, with newspapers competing for readers through sensational coverage. The name Jack the Ripper itself came from a letter sent to the Central News Agency, signed Jack the Ripper, though this letter is now believed to have been a hoax created by journalists. The media coverage helped create the Ripper legend while simultaneously hampering the police investigation by publishing numerous false leads and theories. The Whitechapel murders generated hundreds of letters from people claiming to be the killer, most notably the Dear Boss letter, the Saucy Jackie postcard, and the From Helm letter. The latter was particularly notorious as it was accompanied by half a human kidney, purportedly from victim Catherine Eddowes. While most of these communications were dismissed as hoaxes, they contributed to the public panic and helped establish the archetype of the taunting serial killer that would influence both real crimes and fiction for generations to come. The social impact of the Ripper murders was profound and far-reaching. The crimes exposed the deplorable conditions in London's East End, leading to calls for social reform. The murders also highlighted the inadequacies of London's police force and led to several improvements in investigative techniques. The case drew attention to the plight of London's poor, particularly women forced into prostitution, though sadly, little immediate improvement in their conditions resulted from this awareness. Over the years, hundreds of theories have been proposed regarding the identity of Jack the Ripper. Suspects have ranged from royal physicians to American quack doctors, from famous artists to members of the royal family. Some of the most prominent suspects have included Montague John Druitt, a barrister whose suicide shortly after the Kelly murder drew police attention, James Maybrick, a cotton merchant whose purported diary confessing to the crimes was discovered in the 1990s but widely dismissed as a hoax, and Sir William Gull, Queen Victoria's physician, who featured in various conspiracy theories. Other notable suspects have included Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber who was committed to an asylum in 1891, John Pizer, known as Leather Apron, who was actually cleared of any involvement, and Walter Sickert, an artist whose possible involvement was championed by author Patricia Cornwell in a controversial book. More recent theories have suggested H.H. Holmes, America's first recognized serial killer, though timeline evidence makes this unlikely, and James Kelly, an escaped lunatic who had previously murdered his wife. The investigation techniques used in the Ripper case, while primitive by today's standards, helped establish many principles of modern criminal investigation. The police began using photography more extensively to document crime scenes, and the importance of preserving evidence became more widely recognized. The case also highlighted the value of forensic medicine in criminal investigations, though the limited technology of the time prevented the collection of what we would now consider crucial evidence. The influence of the Ripper murders on popular culture cannot be overstated. The case has inspired countless books, films, television shows, and other media. The image of the mysterious killer in a top hat and cloak, stalking through foggy London streets, has become iconic, though it bears little resemblance to contemporary descriptions of suspicious individuals. The Ripper case has also influenced the true crime genre, the development of detective fiction, and our cultural understanding of serial killers. The architectural and geographical context of the murders provides another fascinating layer to the case. The East End of London in 1888 was a maze of narrow streets, courts, and alleyways, many of which no longer exist. The area had undergone significant changes during the Victorian era, with railway construction and street improvements altering the urban landscape. Understanding the geography of Whitechapel has been crucial for researchers attempting to trace the killer's movements and establish possible patterns in the crimes. From a criminological perspective, the Ripper murders represent a watershed moment in the history of serial killer investigations. The case demonstrated patterns that would become familiar in later serial killer cases: the targeting of vulnerable victims, the escalation of violence, the possible sexual motivation for the crimes, and the killer's apparent need to draw attention to his actions through letters to the media and police. The case also highlighted the importance of victimology in understanding serial crimes, as all the canonical victims shared similar characteristics and circumstances. The political ramifications of the Ripper murders were significant. The failure to catch the killer led to the resignation of Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Charles Warren and contributed to growing criticism of the government's handling of poverty and crime in London. The murders also exacerbated existing social tensions, particularly anti-Semitic sentiment in the East End, as several suspects were of Jewish origin. The case became a focal point for debates about law enforcement, immigration, and social reform in Victorian Britain. The forensic aspects of the case continue to fascinate modern investigators. The precision of some of the mutilations suggested to contemporary observers that the killer had anatomical knowledge, leading to the enduring theory that he might have been a surgeon or butcher. Modern analysis of the wound patterns and crime scene photographs has provided new insights into the killer's possible methods and level of expertise, though conclusions remain speculative due to the limited nature of surviving evidence. The role of women in Victorian society was dramatically highlighted by the Ripper murders. All the victims were women living in poverty, most working as occasional prostitutes to survive. Their vulnerability was a product of the severe social and economic constraints placed on women in Victorian society, particularly those of the working class. The murders sparked debate about women's safety and rights, though meaningful social change would not come for many years. The investigation methods used in the Ripper case reveal much about Victorian policing. The Metropolitan Police, founded in 1829, was still a relatively young organization in 1888. The force lacked many tools we now consider basic to police work. There was no fingerprint analysis, no blood typing, and photography was still a relatively new technology in criminal investigation. The case helped establish the importance of systematic crime scene investigation and the need for specialized detective training. The medical evidence from the murders provides crucial insights into both the crimes and Victorian forensic practices. The post-mortem examinations were conducted by Dr. Thomas Bond and Dr. George Bagster Phillips, among others. Their detailed reports, which survive today, show both the thoroughness of Victorian medical examination and its limitations. The reports also reveal the development of forensic medicine as a discipline, as doctors attempted to draw conclusions about the killer from the nature of the wounds. The psychological profile of Jack the Ripper has been debated extensively by modern criminologists and psychologists. The organized nature of some aspects of the crimes, combined with the apparent disorganization of others, has led to various theories about the killer's mental state and motivations. The ritualistic elements of the murders, particularly the progressive mutilations, suggest a killer driven by complex psychological compulsions rather than mere opportunity or robbery. The legacy of the Ripper murders extends far beyond their immediate historical context. The case established many of the tropes we associate with serial killers: the use of a nickname, the taunting letters to police, the focus on a specific type of victim, and the apparent ability to evade capture despite intense police effort. The case also influenced the development of criminal profiling, forensic psychology, and the study of serial killer behavior patterns. The cultural response to the Ripper murders revealed much about Victorian society. The sensational newspaper coverage reflected both the public's morbid fascination with the crimes and the emerging power of mass media. The murders became a lens through which Victorian society examined its fears about urbanization, poverty, immigration, and changing social norms. The case also influenced literature, art, and theater of the period, contributing to the development of the detective fiction genre. The various conspiracy theories surrounding the Ripper murders reflect both Victorian and modern preoccupations. Theories involving royal or Masonic conspiracies reveal anxieties about power and privilege, while suggestions of medical involvement reflect fears about science and authority. Modern theories continue to emerge, often reflecting contemporary concerns and incorporating new analytical techniques. The enduring mystery of Jack the Ripper's identity has spawned a vast industry of books, tours, museums, and research societies. Ripperology has become a field of study in its own right, with researchers applying modern forensic techniques and historical analysis to the case. While the killer's identity remains unknown, our understanding of the historical context and significance of the crimes continues to evolve. The impact of the Ripper murders on law enforcement practices was lasting. The case highlighted the need for better crime scene preservation, more systematic investigation methods, and improved communication between different police divisions. The creation of detailed crime scene photographs and medical reports set important precedents for future investigations. The case also influenced the development of detective training and the importance of maintaining detailed records of criminal investigations. The social geography of Whitechapel played a crucial role in the Ripper murders. The area's maze-like streets, dark alleys, and numerous courts provided the killer with escape routes and hiding places. The crowded nature of the district, with its mix of residences, businesses, and temporary lodgings, made surveillance difficult and witness statements unreliable. Understanding this geographical context helps explain both how the killer operated and why he proved so difficult to catch. The role of forensic science, though limited by Victorian technology, was significant in the Ripper investigation. The careful documentation of wounds and crime scenes, the preservation of evidence, and the attempt to establish patterns between the murders all contributed to the development of modern forensic practices. The case highlighted both the potential and limitations of scientific investigation in criminal cases. The Ripper murders occurred during a period of significant social and technological change. The introduction of new printing technologies enabled mass newspaper circulation, while improvements in photography and medical science provided new tools for criminal investigation. The case reflects this transitional period in both its investigation methods and its coverage in the media. The enduring fascination with Jack the Ripper reveals much about our cultural preoccupations with crime, mystery, and justice. The case combines elements of horror, detection, and historical investigation that continue to captivate audiences. The unsolved nature of the crimes allows for continuous reinterpretation and speculation, ensuring the case's relevance to new generations of researchers and true crime enthusiasts. In conclusion, the Jack the Ripper murders represent far more than a series of unsolved crimes. They mark a crucial moment in the history of criminal investigation, media coverage of crime, and public understanding of serial killers. The case continues to influence how we think about crime, investigation, and the dark side of urban life. While the true identity of Jack the Ripper may never be known, the impact of his crimes on law enforcement, media, and popular culture remains profound and far-reaching. This concludes episode 1 of Twisted Crime Collective, Jack the Ripper. Stay tuned for next week episode 2, The Zodiac Killer.